Welcome back to Keto in the Kitchen with Pat. I'm so glad you returned, and I hope your keto journey is still continuing in a great way. Today we are going to be making zucchini pizza casserole, and if you've never had it, you're in for a treat. I have to tell a quick little story before we begin. A couple of years ago, I had some people come to visit me from out of town. It was a couple that I know and their two little boys. I think they were about 8 and 10 years old. And they were so cute because I made dinner for them, and I made the zucchini pizza casserole, and I made a nice beautiful salad to go along with it. The boys were sitting at the table and they said, you know how young boys could be, a little bit apprehensive, like, what's that? I said, that's a zucchini pizza casserole. I think you'd really like it. And they kind of look at each other like, oh, is she crazy? I said, well, give it a try. You might really like it. So they did. Cutest thing was we were all cleaning up the table after dinner, and they were going to go back to their hotel. And because they had Walt Disney World to go to the next day. And one of the little boys came up to me and he said, Pat, could we take those leftovers with us to our hotel room? I had such a fondness in my heart for that little boy. It was so adorable. So when a little boy asks you to take leftovers home, you know it must be a 2 thumbs up dish. So anyway, let's get cooking in the kitchen. Okay, so we're gonna start. You can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 medium-sized zucchini. I've just cut off the ends. We're gonna need 4 cups of shredded zucchini, and I'm going to pop on top a strainer basket because there's a lot of moisture in them. Having holes in the bottom is very important so that it can drain right through the bottom and into the bowl. You could use a box shredder and do it all by hand, and I have in the past. And then I made this dish so often that I went out and bought myself a food processor. So that makes life easier and quicker when making this dish. I have my food processor all set up to go. And so we're going to be putting in the grating blade. These blades are very, very sharp. So be really careful. I have cut myself on them when I first got them, so be forewarned. Here we go. I'm going to turn it on, and you use this little device when you're pushing these through to use instead of your fingers. You don't want to do that. All right, here we go. Okay, 1 down, many to go. What happened there? Well, things happen in the kitchen, don't they? So we're ready to go. I've got to go and kind of wipe up a little bit and put that zucchini into that colander to drain with some salt. And I'm going to use about a teaspoon of salt, and that kind of draws out the water. The processor holds 5 cups, so I have a little extra, which is good, but the recipe calls for 4. So it's going to sit. We're going to mix it up so that the salt gets distributed in there, and we're just going to squeeze that really well and try to get out as much moisture as we can. Okay, I'm just taking a spoon and I'm going to mix it up a little bit. You can see on top moisture is coming out of the zucchini. You'll actually be able to see it. You can use a spoon and just keep pressing, but I just think that takes an awful lot of time. So I am just going to take my perfectly clean hands, and I'm going to have on standby a couple pieces of paper towel. Let's get in there and do some draining. And you can see the juice coming out. Can you see it? Like that. And keep doing that several times. And that's why you want to make sure that you have holes in the bottom, because all that juice is going to be going down into this bowl. So this is a little bit of a process. This is the hardest part of this dish. So if you can get through this, you're doing really good, and you're going to be well on your way to making this over and over again. I've squeezed that for a couple minutes maybe, and as you can see, there is a lot of juice already. So I'm just going to dump that out. What you want to do is just keep moving that zucchini, and it's getting more and more dry each time we do this. progress is being made. I feel like I've squeezed enough. I'm going to transfer what's in the colander into the bowl, and I'm going to cover the bowl and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator. Just leave it sit in the refrigerator for, well, you can do it overnight, but I'm going to do it at least 2 hours, and that really takes the water out. That's the hardest part of the whole casserole dish. But let me say, it is well worth it. You may be freaked out a little bit thinking you've got a great zucchini and then squeeze juice, but it's not as hard as it sounds. So here's my bowl of the squeezed zucchini. We're gonna cover that and put it in the fridge, and I'm gonna leave it set at least a couple hours while I go do something else. I'm going to some gardens and see some plants and flowers with my sister, which is perfect. So if you plan ahead, you can just let this sit in the refrigerator, and that will take out and absorb all the rest of that juice. So this will be nice and dry. So sticking it in the fridge for a few hours or even overnight makes your life a whole lot easier. Well, we're back, second day, and it is looking really great. Now, I'm going to show you, but you can't see how nice and dry it is, but it is really, really good. Okay, so here we go, on to our next step. So we're going to take that zucchini and we're going to make a crust. I already have my pan out and I have lightly greased it. We also need 2 eggs, and we're going to need 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, and then 2 ounces of any other type of cheeses. It could be cheddar, mozzarella, you know, anything that you'd like. And then 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And that's all going to go into the bowl, and we'll mix that all up really, really good. And then we're going to pat that into the bottom of that pan. You're going to probably think when you're stirring this up, it's getting moist again. And yes, it is. It's almost a conundrum, isn't it? Because we dried out that zucchini and now we're getting it a little bit moist, but the eggs are going to hold everything together, and the cheeses are going to melt, and that's going to hold it all together as well. So what we're putting in here is not really making it wet, it's just making it a little bit moist and being able to bind together. So don't fret, that is normal. And as you can see, we're just getting it all mixed up really good to pour into the pan. So we've poured all of our zucchini into the cake pan, and we're just pressing it down. I have a little bit left. It won't go to waste. This is ready to go into the oven and bake for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. All right, so we've put our zucchini crust into the oven, and it'll come out a little bit golden brown, but it's not going to be like a crust. It's just, you're going to know it's a little bit golden brown. And the cheeses in there are going to melt, and the eggs are going to bind that together. It's going to be wonderful. Now, I just wanted to take a minute because I don't want you to be dissuaded from making this wonderful dish because you have to grate zucchini. So quite honestly, it's well worth the work. And if you prepare it a day ahead, that's going to be real easy, because then you just come back the next day and finish it up. Or you can just use it right after you squeezed it. It doesn't really matter. I just don't want you to think that that's a deterrent. So I hope you trust me and realize it's definitely worthwhile. Okay, let's get to making the sauce. For our sauce, we're going to need 1 pound of ground beef, 2 ounces of pepperoni, 1 medium onion chop. Took this into my own hands yesterday and chopped up some onion. So that's already done. 1 medium green bell pepper, I'll chop that up. 4 ounces of cheddar or mozzarella cheese. Then we're gonna start our sauce with the ground beef. 2 cups of spaghetti sauce, and I like the Classico roasted garlic. You can use whatever kind you like. Okay, I've added the hamburger to the pan, and we're gonna brown that up. We'll be adding the diced onion once the ground beef gets browned. I usually quarter the pepperonis, usually cut them in half and then quarter in half again, so I quarter them. And I put small pieces in there, so I'm not getting a great big whopping piece of pepperoni in each bite. While I'm letting the hamburger brown in the pan, I have already diced up some green pepper. I diced mine pretty small, and it's going to go on top of the crust once the sauce is on the crust. And then also, I've got my pepperoni here. I'm going to cut all of these in half, and then maybe a half again. I'm going to think about it while I'm cutting them. So that's what we're doing at the moment, getting our hamburger meat brown and getting everything else ready to go. We'll be adding the spaghetti sauce once everything is pretty much ready to go. I did cut up the pepperoni. I have little quarter pieces, which is my preference. I like to get subtle hints of pepperoni, not great big mouthfuls. So you could use it, you could leave whole pieces, or you could cut them in half, or you can quarter them like I did. It's just going to be your personal preference. We're almost there. Hamburger is really brown, and so it's got a little bit of fat in it, which I think is really good for flavor. But being that we're going to be putting a sauce in there, I'm going to try to drain off some of it. It's really not much at all, but I have a real simple way of getting the fat out. You know, I've got an empty bowl here, and I'm just going to take a couple pieces of paper towel and put it right in there to absorb up some of that fat. It's a real simple, easy way to get the fat out. So that's done. Okay, as you can see, that's taken the fat right out of the pan. There's just a tiny little bit in there, but hey, we need that for flavor, for sure. And now I'm going to just add in those pepperonis and cook that just for a little bit. Now we're just going to pour in our spaghetti sauce. Our zucchini pizza crust is out of the oven, and it's cooling a little bit. I still have the oven on because we're going to put it back in the oven once we've added the sauce, the green pepper, and the cheeses to the top. It's really quick at this point. Just stir up our sauce and get it ready to go. Oh yes, look at that sauce. And if you don't use it all, then just put it in a bowl and use it for something else. Even eating it plain in a dish is good. So that is just about ready to go on top of the zucchini crust. I've added the sauce to the crust, topped it with some of that chopped green pepper, added some grated Parmesan cheese to the top, and I'm also going to add 4 ounces of cheddar and mozzarella cheese. I just top it with cheese until I feel like it's the right amount. I do have some sauce left, and I am going to save that because sometimes the next day or so you may want to add a little more sauce on top. Remember that little bit of extra that I had? I did pop that into the oven, and I'll put the sauce on that and some green pepper and some mozzarella and cheddar cheese before I go put that in the oven as well. And look at after the cheese is added to the top. And it looks like Christmas, doesn't it? Oh my goodness. My mouth is watering just looking at it because I know how good it does taste. So I think you'll be quite impressed. And then my other extra little pan, I've added some mozzarella and some cheddar. So that's going to be just a slightly different, but pretty much the same. But I'm going to go into the oven now to bake about, well, it says 20 minutes, but you watch it. It's probably just going to be till the cheese melts and gets a little bubbly and a little bit golden. So we'll be checking on it. And there it is in the oven. We're going to wait until the cheese melts, gets a little bit bubbly and brown, and we'll be pulling that out, and then dinner's almost done. You can see that the smaller one is really getting bubbly. The other one just needs a little bit more time. I think I'll pull out the cheesy bubbly one and let the other one continue baking. The other one should be done in just about 10 minutes. Okay, I've pulled it out of the oven and it is bubbling hot. So I am going to let that sit and cool off a little bit. So there is our zucchini pizza casserole. I have to tell you, this is just as good as a pizza without being a pizza and without the carbs. This is a win-win in my book. I hope you'll give it a try. Thank you for stopping by Keto in the Kitchen with Pat. I sure do appreciate each and every one of you. See you next time. Bye.